Hmm.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم دكتور سهيل.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Anybody has any question for Dr. Suhail today?
السلام عليكم، الحمد لله على السلامة.
السلام عليكم. أنا أبو عبد الله. الله يسلمك.
Okay, Dr. Suhail.
كل عام وانتم بخير.
Yeah. Anybody has any question again for Dr. Suhail? Okay, Dr. Suhail, you can start.
Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak. Just wanted, if nobody has any question, just wanted to find, last time we were discussing about the definition of Aqidah, and that is only if somebody has some other question, they can, if not, then I'll appreciate if Dr. Ganucci could define, and because there is massive confusion, people think that it is about creed and different sects and all that.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. I mean, to define Aqidah or belief in Islam, it's always you face the challenge that you find already some typical or traditional definitions that are well established, that majority of Muslims, they don't know. But scholars, they agreed, and different schools, they agreed that to memorize sentences whenever they ask about Aqidah, believe in Allah and His names, attributes, without any tashbih, without resemblance, and without giving it a shape. So when you say Allah has hand, it means He has a hand, but we don't know the shape of it. That's one school. That's the Ash'ara. No, that's the Salaf in general. And then without ta'til, so without denying those attributes and without giving them similarity and without giving them a shape, something like this. And I'd like to define Aqidah in much simpler terms, the way that was presented by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. I'm sure the companions did not know these sentences, these typical sentences. That's not what this is. Came with the books of Torah, with Aqidah Tahawiyya, and with the people who kept writing books and books about Aqidah, even though the greatness of Islam is in its simplicity. It's basically the Shahada, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, that you believe that there is no deity worthy of worship other than Allah. Allah is one, Tawheed, or the oneness of Allah. Allah is the creator of everything, and everything. I think I don't know, find myself disconnected. Anyway, so believe in Allah, Allah al-Khaliq, the creator of everything, and everything is creation. And the fact that Allah has transcendent attributes. His power has no limit. His justice is perfect. His mercy, all his names and attributes are absolute and transcendent. The fact that nothing is like him, ليس كمثله شيء. These are verses in Quran. The verse in Surah Al-An'am, ذلكم الله ربكم لا إله إلا هو خالق كل شيء وهو على كل شيء وكيل. ذلكم الله ربكم لا إله إلا هو. I'm gonna try to get the verse number. It's in Surah Al-An'am, I believe. وهو على كل شيء وكيل. So An'am, where is it? Yeah, An'am 107. No, 102. An'am 102. ذلكم الله ربكم لا إله إلا هو خالق كل شيء فاعبدوه وهو على كل شيء وكيل لا تدركه الأبصار وهو يدرك الأبصار وهو اللطيف الخبير. So read the translation. He's the disposer of all affairs. That's how they translate it. The disposer of all affairs. على كل شيء وكيل. And then the focus should be on the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For me, the aqidah is the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the belief, the simple belief. And we really should not complicate anything. We should not complicate the religion and then say only scholars can understand it. We should not complicate the aqidah and say only some people can understand it. And then hadith, we made the science of hadith, only group of people can understand it. Which means that we created a clergy in Islam, even though there is no clergy. And the idea that is prevalent among Muslims, that average Muslims cannot understand Quran, cannot understand Hadith, cannot understand Aqidah, cannot understand anything. They just have to they have to pray and worship, and that's it. And that's not. I don't think that's correct. So once you go beyond these beliefs, then the focus should be on the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here also we have some problems to fix. Relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be based essentially on love. The worship is the highest state of love, that we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the point where we worship. So worship should be like the peak or the ultimate, and should be an expression of that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you don't hear this a lot because people are afraid. Why? Because some Sufis groups have taken this spirituality to one extreme. So the Salafi response was to have an Islam without spirituality. So somebody talks about love, they are afraid to be misunderstood or labeled as Sufi, or to go into that slippery road. So people avoid that altogether, even though that should be the foundation. We should work, our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be based on two main pillars or foundations: love and gratitude. Love and gratitude. We love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so much that we want to express that love in serving Him, in making Him pleased with us. And then we are so grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all that He has given us, that we want to express that. Why this is important? Because these two driving forces or engines, they push you to do the maximum, not the minimum. If you rely only on fear of punishment, then you're going to go in the other direction, which is looking for a passing grade. So what is the minimum? Pray, okay, let's pray and check that box. Fast, and check the box. Why? I just don't want to be thrown in hellfire. So complicated, twisted the aqidah and the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unnecessarily. So what the focus should be on that relationship, and people can really develop and strengthen that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in 3 ways. One is by studying the Quran. There is probably nothing more effective to strengthen your relationship with Allah than your relationship with the Quran, because the Quran is a book about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most parts of the Quran are talking about Allah. So you want to know Allah, you want to have very strong relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, read the Quran. It's like if you want to know somebody, go and Google it and search and look at their CV and that, etc. history. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. Allah in most parts of the Quran is telling us about himself. So the Quran, studying the Quran, you can see that a lot of verses, there is hardly any page without few names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna Allah bi kulli shayin alim, inna Allah ala kulli shayin qadir, and inna Allah latifun khabir. A lot of verses, and almost every page maybe. There is no page in Quran, there is no passage that in which there isn't some injection of Tawheed, some injection of Aqidah. So studying the Quran. The other two is studying the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a very effective way. And this is something that everybody can do. You take those 99 names and you make a schedule, and then you finish all of them. And you take notes so that you know the meaning of each name, and then you memorize them. And then before you know it, your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will improve tremendously. Because those names and attributes introduces Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are a lot of names of mercy, there are a lot of names of power, a lot of names for forgiveness, it's together, they make you have a very good understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the more you know Allah, the more you love him. We know that connection. So the more you know Allah through the Quran, the more you love him. The more you know Allah through his names, attributes, the more you know you love him. And finally, the reflection on the creation, on the contemplations, on the universe, on your body, makes you always say subhanallah. When you read about different organs, an organ as small as the kidney, an organ like the liver, the heart, etc., what they do, how they function, it's the cell itself. Just go and Google. If you didn't do any biology in your life, you can go and look and get a picture of the cell, human cell. It's like a whole city. So many functions and so many departments and so much work is going on, very well coordinated, and somebody is protecting, somebody is transporting, somebody is producing energy in some organ and some parts of the cells, and amazing. And that's why Quran says that those who contemplate and reflect, they end up saying ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. It brings them closer to Allah. إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. The more knowledge you have, the more you will realize the greatness of Allah, the presence, the existence, etc. The universe. When you talk about the earth, just look at Google and find the place of the earth in the universe. It's a very small microscopic dot. And then look at the size and the distance between different planets and different galaxies. And this whole galaxy of ours is a small part of the bigger universe. It's things that are beyond imagination. So this is what people should be doing. When we talk about Aqidah, defined in a simple term, and direct people to work on their relationship with Allah, rather than giving them a thick book defining Aqidah, and then people keep memorizing it, and then they don't know even what it is. And that's the prophetic approach, by the way. I'm not bringing anything from myself here. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked about the day of judgment. Mata الساعة? He responded by telling the person, what did you prepare for it? So Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was clearly always directing people toward what is practical, what has implications, and so that they don't get immersed in hypothetical situation and theoretical, etc. The scholars themselves, they were always they refuse to address hypothetical issues. There were some stories about Abu Hanifa when he was asked about what the Islamic rule about this situation. If this happens to me and that, he always respond in a sarcastic way or try to deter people from taking that route. Just keep it simple, keep it practical, focus on what can help you become better person, what can help you become better servant of Allah, what can help you performing and fulfilling your mission in life in the most effective way.
Yeah,
I
so just
yes.
sorry. So the closest definition that from the Prophet would be the Hadith Jibril, right? That basically we have to believe in all the books and all the 6 pillars and then the rituals of Islam. But after the Prophet ﷺ, a lot of scholars divided into Rububiyyah and Uluhiyyah and Asma'ul Sifat, So, but from the Prophet's point of view, that is the definition. Do you think? I mean, if I have to explain to my son or my kids, in short, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, would I mean that hadith would be the best to
Those
explain the Aqidah?
those are just the pillars of Iman. It's not the whole Aqidah. So we don't want to go to make it, because that hadith is talking about Arkan in Iman, the things that you need to believe in. Yes, I agree. That's something that should be taught to children, etc. We believe in these things. But the focus, when it comes to believe in Allah, which is special, we can't put the belief in Allah at the same level like believe in angels and believe in Prophet. No, that's the foundation of the deen. When it comes to the belief in Allah, I prefer to steer away from Rububiyyah and Uluhiyyah, which Sahaba did not know these words, and focus on basically you just need to, because this deen is about dedicating your life to Allah. So part of that dedication is to strive all your life to know Allah more and strengthen your relationship with Him, strengthen different aspects of His relationship, and this is how you can do it. That's what I believe is the more effective way of talking to children or talking to any or even to Muslims about Aqidah. Again, after the items or the pillars that in which we need to believe, then when it comes to believe in Allah, by becoming Muslim, you decided to be total servant of Allah and obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That requires, in order to truly dedicate yourself to Allah and to His cause, you have to know Him and strengthen your relationship with Him, and this is how you can do it.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
So,
Yes, I want to add something here. Ideas can put you in a prison or can put you in, can set you free. So, especially Aqidah understanding. And it looks like for the past about 800 to 1,000 years, Muslims were set in a prison because of the traditional understanding of Aqidah. What they call Aqidah Tahawiyya and other stuff, that actually, instead of helping us, it put us in a very tight understanding that split us from reality, split us from even the Quran, from the understanding Quran. Here, I just want to mention one ayah in the Quran. It's in Surah Al-Najm and other surah. which is يتبعون إلا الظن وإن الظن لا يغني من الحق شيئا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here describes there is something people follow and it's not really definite. It's done. It's doubtful. So if you look at these books of Aqidah that Ibn Taymiyyah or the Salaf or what the sister mentioned, Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, all these stuff, it actually doesn't have strong existence in the Quran. Most of it is done. Now, people look at Aqidah as they mentioned Adab al-Qabr, the grave punishment, or Dajjal, or Mahdi, or this stuff, which is, if you look, what's the dalil, what's the evidence there, you will find it not strong, not actually definite. But they call it Aqidah. And all of these mashayikh these days, like if you follow Omar Sulaiman or these people, they talk about this as it's the Aqidah. But in reality, this is just news. This is just something not definite in the Quran and in the strong hadith. So our understanding of Aqidah is really corrupted and put us in a prison instead of make us, effective in life. So we have to look at Aqidah as something, the basic understanding of Islam. It's not what this hadith or that hadith or even the definition of Iman and Islam. No, it's the main ideas that's clear and strong in the Quran. And what Sayyidina Muhammad spent his life, make it clear for people. There is Allah, there is one Allah, there is Allah is ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allah gave you the strength. Allah made something that's in your tradition wrong. People are equal, you are free, there is justice in life. This is my understanding of Aqidah. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallah khair. Very, very good, important addition and points. Again, this is our own doing. We took a religion that is very simple, very inspiring, very empowering, very flexible. We turned into very rigid, very complicated, very uninspiring, and it is all blocks or rhetoric, things that you need to dedicate all your life to memorize those books, and then you are called alim. Why? Because you read all the Aqidah Tahawiyya and you memorize it, and you read all Fatawa Ibn Taymiyyah and you memorize it, and you read this, and then you become scholar. That's totally wrong. This is the crime that we committed against a religion that was meant to remain vibrant, that was meant to remain always fresh, always renewed, always able to inspire and empower people wherever they are at all times, always able to guide and inform life. Even the most advanced nation, the true Islam can still add to them and can still improve their lives. Forget about those who are backward like ourselves. But we're talking about but that's the true Islam. The Islam that reached us is not the true Islam. I know this is something that is very shocking, very, very controversial, and people will, I don't know how they're going to receive it, but that's my firm belief that this religion that went through 13 centuries of dictatorship was completely mutilated, completely twisted, completely very much reduced, and that's normal. That's very logic. The true Islam cannot coexist with that form of government. It cannot. That family ruling, dynasty, absolute power that is inherited wants two things. It doesn't want a religion that inspires and empowers. Want religions that soothe people and make them go to sleep. So that's why only those elements in religion they were kept. The things, prayers, pray as much as you want. Dhikr, do as much as you want. Fiqh, ibadat, you name it, I can sponsor you. But only the items in Islam that do not challenge that system of governance, these are the ones that were kept. And yes, On the surface, our Islam looks exactly as the Islam of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the companions. But that's only on the surface. You just scratch the surface and you find two things that are very different. One is true diamond, and one is rusty iron that was just plated with silver or diamond or whatever. So on the surface, they look exactly the same. Scratch the surface, there is no comparison whatsoever. And you can see the results. There is a version of religion that took few dozens of Bedouins in the desert, illiterate, poor, belong to tribes that are fighting each other all the time, and turned them into champions of great civilizations. And there are versions of religion. There is a version of religion now that is embraced by almost 2 billions, and they are irrelevant. In this world, we are irrelevant. If you check what contribution we are making to humanity, there is nothing. There is hardly anything that we are contributing. And statistics say this. It's not just me saying. Statistics are embarrassing. When you check where Muslims in different classifications and different categories, the statistics are embarrassing. So you try to convince me that it's the same. No, it cannot be the same. That's one. Number two, we know that this religion went through those centuries. We know there are scholars of Sultan, ulama Sultan, the scholars who issue fatwa for the ruler a la carte, on demand. We know that. We know that these scholars, they legitimize hukm al-mutaghallib. Whoever comes to power and establish law and order, basically establish oppressed people, then he is legitimate, regardless of how he came to power and regardless of what he does. So, but to reconcile things, what people did, no, people are saying our history is great. Our history is all rosy. Why? Because if you put that history into question, put it on the table, and talk about reality that was brutal dictatorship, then you're gonna question the version of religion that we inherited. So to make it consistent, no, the history was rosy, all of it, and therefore Islam remained intact until the collapse of the Ottoman state. And then we had a small accident, minor accident in the road. Nobody says, how come it's a minor accident if overnight you became a piece of like a pizza being divided by two ministers? And Sykes-Picot, they brought the map and say, which part you want? No, I need this for me. Okay, we can divide it. That's how Muslim world was at certain point in time. And you convinced me a few years before that, when we had the Ottoman Khilafah, we were in good shape. No, we were not. No, we were not in good shape. The state was very strong. That's true. The Umayyad state and the Abbasi state and even the Ottoman state, the state was strong, military strong. But that doesn't mean that we were in good shape. And people point, first of all, part of it is because others were worse. Others, they have a worse system of governance and they were plunged in the darkness. And that explains why when Europe woke up, then we collapsed. When Europe woke up and we went into free fall. Why? Because things were at work already. And I use an analogy of somebody who had, unfortunately, a lot of chronic diseases, severe, attacking his body and his immune system, and he was not aware of them. They were silent. They were not aware. But he kept focusing on the symptoms. That's why all attempts to change our situation failed, because they start that we are in good shape. We had just minor issues. I have just a cold that I can fix it. No, you don't. You have an issue that is 13th century old. That when you went back to that dynasty rule, and then that caused suppression of any creativity, and people point to the great scientists, great Muslim scientists. That's true. But those great Muslim scientists, they were not because of that system. It was in spite of that system. These great minds, and go and read what happened to them. What happened to the scholars, what happens to Abu Hanifa and Malik and Shafi and Ibn Hanbal. All of them, they were persecuted and jailed and tortured. What happened to the greatest scientists that we are very proud of. It is just every now and then you have an enlightened Khalifa who comes and encourage these things, and then the next one will just turn the page. So the whole ummah was dependent on that person. We're waiting for our luck, gambling to see what's going to happen. Yes, that system at that time, that's what was in the whole world, but that doesn't make it good. Just you call it Khilafah and then it becomes good? No. It is still absolute power that is inherited, family ruling. And then part of it, yes, the successes we had in that history because of the future rulers used to be well prepared. And in some cases it worked. Because when you take a child and you start preparing him to become the next Khalifa and spend all these years bringing scholars and bringing people teaching politics and history and geography and Islam and everything. That worked. That system sometimes produced great leaders or great rulers. But that all of this will not make it good. It was wrong. And Islam had to go through that tunnel, and going through that tunnel caused a lot of damage to Islam. So we inherited a version that is, even though it is embraced by 2 billions, they have all the requirements. We have the human resources, we have the financial resources, the Muslim countries are in the best locations in the world, the most strategic locations you can think of. And still, in addition to the great religion, if we have it, if we find it, and with all of this, we are yet to make a step forward. And we are still convincing ourselves about that assessment of history. No, history was good. Everything was great. We were in good shape. Islam was preserved and remained intact. And we had this minor issue because of colonization. So if you get rid of colonization, bring people back to Islam, inshallah, everything is going to go fine because we're going to fix that minor accident that happened to us. Well, we kicked the colonization out. We brought people back to Islam in millions, in tens of millions, hijab and mosques, and it starts with books and then tapes and then CDs and then websites and then YouTube channels and then satellites and then apps, etc. All about and schools and institution teaching people to memorize Quran, etc. And then what? What happened? It is about time to confront the brutal reality that we had the wrong reading of history, we had the wrong assessment of our situation, and we inherited a twisted and mutilated version of religion.
So Dr. Ghanouchi, from the historical point of view, I've never invested in history of Muslims, you know. So can you say that after the Prophet ﷺ and the first generation of Sahaba, there was not any good example, except one comes to my mind, which is Umar Abdul Aziz. His Khilafah was one of the best. So rest of the history is just, you know, almost negative.
No, you're right. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was exception as even a person, because he was very pious and very just, etc. But there are some other great leaders. They proved themselves either politically, they were able, they have better management. Of Harun al-Rashid is one of those, etc. But they were not the leader that meets the requirement in Islam, and they did not rule following the principles of Islam. There was no shura, There was no consultation. There was no transparency. There was no accountability. So it happens every now and then. By the way, dictatorship in most cases it produces a lot, but still does not make it good. Dictatorship, why? Because there is no democracy, there is no debate. The ruler decides something at night, applies it in the morning. Even Iraq was achieved a lot under Saddam and others. So North Korea, whatever, you name it. Dictatorship has that, but at the end of the day, it can bring a strong state or create a strong state, but the society remains weak. Society can be strong only when there are institutions, only when people are free. They become creative, etc. But to force them to do things, you can get immediate results, but not in the long run. So to answer your question, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, not only his term was exceptional, but he as a person he was exceptional. That's why they call him the fifth Khalifa. Because he was the same category like the Khulafa al-Rashidin in terms of no Jawari, no throwing money on people who make poem about him. No, he went back to the original system. Very transparent, didn't use a penny from the treasure on himself or on his family, etc. So not only his tenure was good, but also his as a person was. But in other parts of history, there was some great politicians, great military leaders. There was some terrible ones also. There are people who squandered a lot of money on just nothing, and was really very brutal. There are people who killed thousands. There are Abbasi Khalifa who killed thousands and thousands of Umayyad. From Umayyad also, they were not even better. Ottomani, same thing. The struggle of power was very bloody in our history. So, but every now and then we had an enlightened Khalifa, promoted thinking, promoted etc. But it's temporary. Usually the one who comes next will just retract all of that.
And currently, it's only the Palestinians who have proved to be good Muslims, I think. Otherwise, like you said, there is no good example.
No. Don't mix the two. There are a lot of good people, individuals. We're not talking about good or bad. We're talking about the Islam that changes individual, transform them, and produce the change that is needed. We're talking about Islam that produces the category of individuals and community that is described in the Quran. That is not there. But there are a lot of good people, there are a lot of pious people who are very good worshippers. But that does not change anything. So the Palestinian, it's not like they are better than others in terms of Islam. Palestinians, they have a cause. They have a cause. If we lived the time when Algeria was occupied or other countries, you would see very similar situation where people are mobilized and united around the cause. So what you see in Palestine today is a state of mobilization and unity around a cause, which is the liberation and the end of occupation. But Palestinians, they are like other Muslims. If tomorrow, and we have seen it, what happened in West Bank, if tomorrow they have their own state and their own rulers, I'm afraid they will regret these days, like all of us. I mean, it's hard to regret time when you were occupied, but sometimes the disappointment reaches a point where you say, what's the point? We paid all of the sacrifices and we end up with a corrupt, like now, what do you think the Palestinian and West Bank feel after the Palestinian Authority took over from the direct occupation before.
Dr. Ghanouchi, just a question. Why do you think that like the Muslim empire lasts longer than any other empire with this disease that we have? Why it didn't fall, in the first 200 years or 300 years? Why it took long to fall?
First of all, it wasn't any one Muslim empire. So we had one's come and go. That's one. As I said, that system, there are few things that allowed it to sustained it. Number one is there was really no real competition. The whole world or the rest of the world was in much worse situation than. So if we're talking about persecution of scientists, in other places of the world there was no scientists to begin with. There was no science. The church and the kings, they prohibited even the minimum that we had, or the level that we had. So we were not, it's not good, and still it wins the championship or the tournament, and even the fan will tell you our team is not good because of weakness of the others. So one of the reasons was that we didn't have any real competition. Muslims, with all the deficiency of that system, they were still ahead of the rest of the world. That's number one. Number two, as I told you, that system has some elements in it that allowed it to be sustained. It's not like the military coup, that somebody comes from the military base and take over. No, there are people who were prepared for like 20, 30, 40 years before they take over. So that helped, that's sustaining that system. You have someone who has been prepared to lead or to rule for decades. So that's another factor. The third factor is that even though it was a dictatorship, it was a dynasty rule, but it was nothing like the one that we see now. This is much worse. It wasn't really totalitarian regime. Totalitarian regime meaning it doesn't leave any room for the society. No, there was a room, there was a margin. And the biggest proof for this is what? The biggest proof is the endowment, awqaf. There was a lot of endowment in the history of Islam. Endowment meaning gives the society some independence from the system, from the state. So awqaf is one main factor and main indication that yes, it was a dictatorship. At the end of the day, you cannot oppose, you are not treated as a citizen, you are a ra'iyah, you are subjects, and whatever they give you, it's a favor, and they can take your money and they can do whatever they want, and you have no way to say no, because those who said no, you know what happened to them. But with all of that, that system left some room for the society, and the main indication was this system of endowment. You see it today in United States. Most of the universities, they are based on endowment. So these are some of the factors. And of course, the idea that I'm still Amir al-Mu'mineen or Khalifa, so I can't go very far. Even if I do all sins in the world, I can do them inside the castle or whatever, but there is a limit, because that's the gentleman agreement between the rulers and the scholars, that don't make any kufr, flagrant
kufr move and will endorse you. So that also, when you rule in the name of Islam, it creates some limits for you. You can see some of it today to some extent in Morocco, for example. It's not like Morocco, a great system, or no, it's very similar to other parts, but because he's calling himself Amir al-Mu'mineen, they always tell him, how about this? How can this happen in your country and you are Amir al-Mu'mineen? So it creates some limitations. Or that happened probably on a bigger scale at the time of the Khulafa. Of course, some Khulafa, they didn't care. Some Khulafa, they didn't care about any of these things, and they did because they had absolute power. And absolute power corrupts absolutely, unfortunately.
Yeah, Jazakallah. The point here is like we have the Mughal who came to Baghdad and took over, and we have the Salafiyin too. And after that, we wake up and then retake it back, and then come back to the same, doing the same job as usual. It's the same thing, repeating the same thing. It's like when Salah ad-Din took over Palestine and they, liberated, and after he died, they start fighting, over this. They start
His children,
yeah,
his sons, yeah. Yes. Are you there?
yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's Baghdad, after Baghdad fall, the people who took over Baghdad, and then they changed. They changed their religion and become Muslim too. The Salafiyin at the same time they took over. They left and they try again, and they multiple times. And there is still, as he said, there is still somewhere in this region, or in the system, that it's good, that help us to regain and change and do something, and become a little bit powerful and move on.
To summarize it, Nana, we have that great religion is always there available. Every now and then you have a leader, a reformer, a scholars who will lead some reform movement. And then, as you mentioned, basically allow Muslim to bounce back from a collapse. The problem is these things were never institutionalized. They depend on that person. And you mentioned great example, Salah ad-Din. It just did not last even to his sons. So, and it starts from the beginning. We had a great system in Khulafa al-Rashidin. Great system. We should have been the first to bring to humanity this democratic system at the highest, with a high level of morality, etc. We were in a very good position to do that because we already applied it. We already implemented it. So we didn't need Jean-Jacques Rousseau or anybody to come up with the theory, because the system was already implemented. It was already there. It needed to be institutionalized. It wasn't. And that's why after the death and the assassination of Umar ibn Khattab, things couldn't start deteriorating, because it was very dependent on the personality of the ruler. And it remained like this. You have Salah ad-Din, you have Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, but what happened after him? His tenure was only 2 years, I believe. So things are not institutionalized. That's why we were the first to implement the best political principles and systems of governance. But democracy developed in the West after I don't know how many centuries. We were the first That's why I'm telling you that even the achievement, the scientific achievement, they happened in spite of the system, not because of it. We were the first to start almost all sciences. You name it. Medicine, yes. Optics, Ibn al-Haytham. Medicine, Ibn Sina and Razi, etc. Math, you name it. Social science, sociology, Ibn Khaldun. We were the founders of almost all the sciences. But the scientific revolution and the industrial revolution developed somewhere else. Why? Because we never had institutions where these things can pile up. Because you can have a great individual achievement, but it doesn't last. Why? Because the system was not encouraging this. Same thing was in Europe, by the way. In Europe, they had some great scientists, and some of them, they were executed. But only when they freed themselves and came up with the fresh ideas, etc. That's where the individual achievements were translated into societal progress. So these two examples will tell you, we were the first to implement the best political principles or principles of governance, transparency, consultation, leadership by consent, accountability, equality and equal opportunity, justice, you name it. These principles were there, Khulafa al-Rashidin, but they were not institutionalized, and that's why they did not last after them. And then the first to start to establish the foundations for all sciences, but it remained individual effort. There was no system to pick that and turn it into revolutions, scientific revolution or industrial revolution. That's why I keep saying that unless we acknowledge that problem, because almost everything is related to that dynasty rule and dictatorship that lasted for 13th century. The moment you deny that, then you're going to accept the existing narration that all history was rosy and Islam remained intact, and we only had a small problem recently. That's the prevalent narration, and it's totally wrong. We tried to build on it, and we failed miserably. Every time we take that as our foundation, and we try to build something, and it collapses, because the foundations are weak. Diagnosis of the reality is wrong. The fact that the belief or thinking that Islam remained intact and what we have now is exactly the same as the original version is wrong. History was rosy, everything great and everything, that's totally wrong. And believe me, without fixing these three items, starting from acknowledging that we had a dictatorship, bad system of governance, that now we are not accepting it. We are revolting against it now, but we accepted it for 13 centuries or 12 centuries. We had that system. That system caused Islam to freeze and Islam to be mutilated and reduced. And that system weakened the individuals and weakened the society, even though the state remained strong and remained strong, part of it because others are weaker. And then we were going down without feeling. It's like silent disease. We're not aware of it, but we were going down until we collapsed. When we collapsed, rather than going to the root cause of the problem, where we lost our way, no, we convinced ourselves that no, it just happened. It's just very recent. And it happened because of others. They conspired against us and we are a victim. So we fix these new problems and we are good. No, you're gonna have to go to trace the root cause and go to the original problem, to the root cause of the problem. And without ijtihad, without reviving ijtihad, without rediscovering the true Islam, the very inspiring, empowering, embraced as a mission, as a life mission with the ultimate goals and purposes or maqasid, bring it, make it simple again, as it was meant to be, from the beginning. Aqidah simple, the fiqh simple, etc. Unless we do that, as long we are relying on the product of those centuries, the product of those centuries is not good. And it's not going to lead us anywhere, because it was twisted, mutilated, reduced, superficial, rigid, complicated. All damages happen to that religion. But what is fooling us is, on the surface, it still looks the same. Fasting, prayer, they are the same, and people acknowledge that drinking is haram, and etc. So it must be the same religion. No, it's not.
جزاك الله كل خير دكتور
وياكم إن
سهيل.
شاء الله.
Dr. Suhail, he's writing every day in Facebook paragraph in Arabic, discover your religion and renew your life. I would like to ask him to translate it to English, and I advise everybody to
I
read.
will do my best, but if I can get some help, it would be great. Wallah.
I asked Brother Muhammad if he can help in translating to English.
If I can get some help, I'd love to translate it. And
It's very important. I hope everybody read it and spread the word. Use your
inshallah.
Facebook, WhatsApp, send it to your friends.
So-
It's very important.
What is it? I didn't get it. Sorry.
Open Dr. Suhail Ghannouchi Facebook page. He has every day, he will write every day through all Ramadan, one page.
So can you pass that link? I mean, just go on the Facebook and put Dr. Ghannouchi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Suhail Ghannouchi. It's in
But again,
Arabic.
unfortunately, it's in Arabic now, and
No, we can
really,
the translating app. We can use that.
Yeah, you can use it.
Okay.
Yeah, you can use it.
okay, inshallah.
Yeah. And please spread the word. Use all your WhatsApp group. It's very important messages. Every day you will have it for 30 days.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. جزاكم الله كل
Can you
خير.
share the
وياكم.
please, buddy?
Share it.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
Walaikum assalam.